Good afternoon. I'm Chris Scher, a Member Communications Director of the Society of Broadcast Engineers and the co-host of this month's episode of the SBE WEBxtra, the SBE chapter of the web. This is a monthly SBE meeting, usually held on the third Monday of the month. The SBE is the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals with more than 4,500 members, mostly in the U.S., but also around the world. The host of today's SBE WEBxtra is SBE Treasurer and Social Networking Committee Chair Kevin Trueblood. Hi, Kevin. How are you?
I'm great, Chris. It's great to be here this afternoon, and we're going to have some very familiar faces that we're going to see here in just a few minutes, besides yours, Chris, of course. But we're going to be talking about our strategic planning efforts with the SBE. Obviously, a lot of things have changed in the industry, and a lot of things have changed in the membership. And we're going to take a look at the current state of the SBE, as well as what the future may potentially look like. And we'll talk to Andrea Cummis, who's the current president of the SBE, as well as Jim Ragsdale, who is our executive director of the SBE as well. And we'll get some more details about some of the surveys that they've asked and, again, what the future may look like for the SBE. So we'll get to that here in just a few minutes. But Chris, I know you got some business to take care of first.
Sure do. We have your SBE member update for June 19th, 2023. There is one more webinars by SBE on the calendar for June. On June 29, a new four-part series begins. It's called Basic RF for IT. The course is designed for newer engineers who may come from an IT or non-technical background and need some training on the theory and components involved in generating radio frequency signals, as well as the principles involved with respect to maintaining and optimizing operation. Module 1 streams live at 2 p.m. Eastern on June 29. Jeff Welton of Nautel and Gary Cavell of Cavell, Mertz & Associates are the instructors. Looking ahead to August, on August 17th, Ben Barber, President and CEO of Innovonics, teaches HD radio monitoring, what has been done and what can be done with modern monitoring equipment. The webinar will discuss best practices for connecting HD radio equipment, along with describing the advancements in HD radio monitoring. Also, you can always access the entire library of webinars by SBE presentations on demand. For information on these and all the webinars by SBE, go to sbe.org/webinars. The next SBE Leadership Development course will be held August 2 through 4, 2023 at the Courtyard by Marriott Atlanta Airport West in East Point, Georgia. The SBE has presented the SBE Leadership Development course since 1997, although its roots go back to 1965. This course is designed specifically for broadcast engineers who have or aspire to have management responsibilities. The SBE offers the course in cooperation with instructor Dr. Abram Walton, the founder of Ivory Bridge Group, a management consulting and training firm. The deadline to register is quickly approaching, so you need to make your plans now and reserve your seat in the class. Travel and hotel are on your own, but the course registration includes course materials, 3 days of instruction, the Leadership Development webinar series of 3 webinars, a certificate of completion, light breakfast items, and classroom beverages. You can get all the information and register at sbe.org/LDC. The next chapter exam window is in August. The application date for those exams closed earlier this week, unfortunately. So after that, there's a local chapter exam window in November. The application deadline for that is September 8th. If you don't want to wait, or if a local exam is not convenient for you or just not possible because of any in-person restrictions, private proctoring is available. For more information on SBE certification, it's online at sbe.org/certification. The annual SBE membership drive ended on May 31st. The theme this year was the SBE and You, the Perfect Fit. Thanks to the 57 people who recruited 65 new regular members and 3 sustaining members. The drawing for the recruiter prizes will be held later this week when the SBE Executive Committee holds its summer meeting in Indianapolis. And the 2023 SBE Compensation Survey closed on June 1st. If you participated in the survey, we thank you. With more participants comes more accurate data. The results are being compiled and will be released in July. SBE members will also be able to download a copy for free as a member benefit. It will be in the SBE bookstore, which is online at sbe.org/bookstore. And that's your SBE member update for June 19th, 2023. I turn it back to the host of today's SBE WEBxtra, SBE Treasurer and Social Networking Committee Chair, Kevin Trueblood.
Thank you so much, Chris. And as I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, the guests today will look fairly familiar in the form of SBE President Andrea Cummis, as well as Executive Director Jim Ragsdale. Excited to have them here today and excited to talk about some of the findings of some surveys that you have been undertaking. And actually, personally, both of you personally talked to a lot of different members. So, welcome to the show today.
Nice to be here.
Yeah. So I wanted
Thank
to
you.
get started first with the both of you to kind of get a snapshot of where the SBE is today. Our membership is pretty good. We have a lot of great members and very active members and very active chapters. Obviously, people that are watching today obviously are getting a lot out of it, or they wouldn't be watching. At least I would hope so. So I wanted to kind of get a start of where we are as far as membership goes. Are we seeing a pretty consistent membership base, and how are we looking as far as engagement these days?
I'm going to let Jim take the numbers.
All right. From year to year, this is typically our peak time of the year. And so last year we were about 20 members higher than we are currently. So pretty consistent. We always lose a few members, really from an aging out perspective. They retire, or in some situations they pass on. So we lose a few members due to that, but we also have had some good strength in new members, and so we end up being fairly flat from year to year. The I don't know if you want me to dive into the process that we followed then, or
Sure.
leave it at that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
go
mean,
ahead.
basically, yeah, anything that you can share that kind of gives us a snapshot of what our current membership is, because I think, if you've read any of the compensation analysis and things like that of previous years, obviously there's a lot of benefits to being it. We have a very active membership, but it is also changing as the years go on. So, maybe you and Chris can speak a little bit to that.
Yeah, I think, if you look at the demographics of our membership, and primarily from the compensation survey, it's interesting. We have the largest group in the 45 to 55 age group, if I remember correctly, Chris. And I was looking at the results of our survey, and as far as the years that people have been members, it's been very consistent. The number of members that have been with us 10 years, the number of members that have been with us 20 years, number of members 30 years and longer. We have some members that have been with us over 50 plus years. So it's an extraordinarily consistent and loyal group of people.
Yeah, a lot of lifetime memberships that go along with that too, which is where you basically, after you've been in for so long, and you get to be a member for life.
Yeah. Every year I hear from at least two or three people who say, I've been with the SBE as long as I've had a career in broadcast engineering, and I've heard word of this lifetime membership, and it's always kind of exciting to be able to share with them that they can continue as members and be with us and continue to enjoy the benefits without any annual dues for the rest of their life.
Yeah. So, Chris, I wanted to, I'd kind of hinted at that, but obviously we're getting close to seeing the latest results of the current compensation analysis. But what have been so far some of the highlights? And we don't have to get too far into the weeds, but there is definitely, for those that are currently active in the SBE, there's definitely advantages to it, right?
Absolutely. And I'll note that the compensation survey is not restricted only to SBE members. So there are some who are not members who are taking the survey that might, I don't want to say skew results necessarily, but not necessarily reflect purely SBE interests versus industry in general. As Jim noted, the higher pool of respondents tends to favor those who are, shall we say, a little up there in years. I think Jim was being a little nice. The bulk of the respondents tend to, as you get older, it gets higher. So I think 60 years old was the highest age group in this last round. And if we look at trends across the years, that graph kind of just keeps continuing to slide a little higher each time, which is really no secret to us. We know that we're an aging population, a demographic in the broadcast technical side of things, which is why some of our efforts have been to try to recruit younger people into the industry and get them on board, not only to continue what we do, but also in some ways to ensure that there are those to take over when some of us retire and move on. Jim mentioned life experience working in the industry. One of the questions we ask is how long you've worked in broadcast or multimedia technology. Again, that number has a higher ranking up in the 31 to 41-ish year range of experience. Declines as you go down and then declines on the other side. So that's sort of the peak of the hump there. I guess a couple of general stats from the compensation survey. I guess the good news is after COVID hit, we saw that people were not getting salary increases, which I guess isn't surprising. But this year, nearly more than twice as many people say they did receive an increase than those who did not, or who said, I don't remember, which if you don't remember, you probably didn't get one, I guess, right? The average salary increase is roughly about 3%. Some got higher, some got less, but in general, those are some of the overall stats. There is one statistic that we like to look at every year, and consistently, with just a few exceptions over the years, that is salary as you compare it to SBE certification. And of course, we, the SBE, are always happy to see that those who are SBE certified are showing that they are, on average, earn a higher salary than those who do not. Now, that's not to say SBE certification guarantees you'll get a higher salary, but at least if you have certification, chances are you are probably a little more active in your own career path as far as your own education efforts and involvement in a lot of different areas of your career. So once again, on the 2023 results that I've seen so far, both on the radio and the TV side, those who are SBE certified do tend to earn more than those who are not certified. And again, the specific numbers will be in the compensation survey report, which is coming out in just a couple of weeks.
Do we have an idea, or either of you off the top of your head, how many members are certified?
That's a kind of a tricky question because some people can hold more than one certification. So if we pull a statistic, it's not always a 1-for-1, at least out of our database materials. I can't say I have a specific number. Megan Clapp, our certification director, might have a specific number that she's been able to filter down. But just pulling a raw number out of the database gives you not really an accurate individual who were certified, who were not, as opposed to, some people hold one, some people, I'll go and mention a name. Wayne Pacina holds every certification he possibly can. So he's one of those overachievers. Gary Morrell is right on his heels, I think. So there are a few who hold multiple and a few who hold one or two. That would be a good question, though. Maybe we'll try to get that from Megan and report on it at a later time.
I was just entirely curious, but yeah, that is, I know there are people that skew the numbers, people that carry like several certifications versus just have one. Cause I have two, and every year Hal Neller always bugs me to get more, and I need to get more. It's just, much like a lot of other members, I'm sure, are like, well, life gets in the way and you get busy, that kind of stuff. But so thanks for that info. And by the way, if you're wondering if this is all just a giant advertisement for the SBE, the answer is yes, it is. This is the SBE YouTube channel. So yeah, join the SBE. There's definitely benefits of it. But in the meantime, I want to kind of shift to, one more point, but financially, the SBE is doing pretty well too. We're not in jeopardy of turning the lights off tomorrow. That right, Jim?
Right. Yeah, we have really a strong financial balance sheet. We have zero debt, good resources invested in our investment account. So the question I think that we ask ourselves all the time is how to best invest those resources. We really have a very strong balance sheet. So we're definitely not in danger of turning out the lights or anything like that. We just want to make sure that we're best supporting our members and really understanding what it is we need to do to do that.
Yeah, and as the treasurer, I guess I could answer that own question to say, yes, we're actually doing pretty good, but I appreciate the details there, Jim. So Jim, both you and Andy did quite a bit of work over the last couple of months in the form of talking to a lot of SBE members directly. And it was quite a long list that the both of you kind of split 50-50 and just basically made time to talk to all of these members directly. And just out of curiosity, how many did you talk to over the last few months?
Well, it began with a membership survey. So we invited every one of our members to respond to the membership survey, and it was intended to be short and to the point and find out what members were saying we were doing well, what they felt like we weren't doing so well at, and suggestions for improvement. And so out of our roughly 4,500 members, about 10%, just a little over 10%, responded to that survey. So we had 463 respondents out of the 4,500 plus. And then, and we ran that survey from October 19th of 2022 to February 7th of 2023. Of the 100, well, one of the questions we asked our members was if they would be willing to participate in a focus group with Andrea and I. And of the 463 that responded, 127 said they would be willing to participate in a focus group. So then I followed up with those 127 to say, what is a good time for you to participate in a focus group? And the general consensus was Fridays are best, probably Friday at noon Eastern time into the afternoon. And so what Andrea and I committed to do was to convene these focus groups with smaller groups. So we usually invited about a dozen members to attend the focus group. And actually, Andrea and I were both a part of those focus groups. So we were able to both hear their responses about those questions. And so we've done, out of the 127 that responded, we have invited, let me see,
78.
we've invited 78 to attend, and we have a 49 left to invite to attend that. So we've held, I think, seven focus groups, and we probably have another 4 or 5 to hold.
So I guess what are the common findings? I mean, obviously, if you're going to ask all of these different people, you're going to get a ton of different answers. So what are some of the initial findings that you're finding, the common themes that you're finding amongst the members?
I guess I can take it from here. The number one thing, everybody was really just happy to have the time to speak with us. That's something not everybody gets all the time. So they really appreciated us just taking the time to talk to them and listen to them. We found that people are very interested in education and certifications. That's probably not a surprise. They've been asking for certifications and education classes in audio over IP, video over IP, lighting for online meetings. And we also discussed doing short videos for new technicians and engineers that are just getting into the business, things that they could learn really quickly. So we're working on that. We talked a lot about where we could find new members. We spoke about having a presence at religious broadcasting conventions, how to reach out to those kinds of people, since many religious houses of worship are having huge systems where they stream their services all the time. And the engineers for those systems are doing the same jobs we all do, but they don't know anything about our organization. So that was a great place to go look for members. We talked about how to attract high school and college students that are studying broadcasting and video production, audio production. um, trying to go to some of the college events where they have conventions or big get-togethers with production people. What else? We spoke about potentially being able to supply Zoom licenses to chapters that are having a hard time getting virtual programs going, and even helping them put together the programs, because we have many vendors and manufacturers that are interested in doing the programs and don't know how to reach those people. Um, and we've also talked about the possibility of creating virtual chapters where there are no chapters in the country, like on a regional basis. So that's something we'll start looking into. Jim, did I miss anything?
No, I think you got everything. I think it was encouraging to see that our members understand the problems that we are seeing. The aging demographic of the SBE was no surprise to those members. They commented on that, and as Andrea pointed out, some of their suggestions and concerns for the future were how do we reach people who are coming into the industry, and also how do we inform people who have an interest in the technical aspects of broadcasting, that there are opportunities for a career there, and that we can be helpful in helping them get a career started in the industry.
I want to back up a second because Andy, you had mentioned, and we've talked about this in the SBE circles for quite a bit in the houses of worship area, and you being in the integration side of the business, is there any kind of equivalent organization for the SBE that serves a lot of these entities like the houses of worship? I mean, there's like an AV organization or something like that, isn't there?
I think, Jim, did you get the names of those? There was a few programs or conventions and organizations that were suggested to us, and Jim's trying to reach
Yeah,
out to them now.
yeah. Actually, just in a recent Zoom, one of the participants, one of our members, had spent the last 30 years working in uh, that kind of technology in houses of worship, and so he mentioned two specific organizations that he knew of. One is very large in the southeast, and just has hundreds and hundreds of members who are doing that kind of work in houses of worship. And then he also gave us a name of another organization here in the Midwest, in the Chicago area, that holds an annual conference that has several hundred attendees that are also doing that kind of work. So that was a really valuable connection to make out of a focus group.
Certainly, because I like I said, I know that's been a ongoing discussion in our talks to kind of not necessarily align ourselves, but to at least kind of there's a mutual benefit to each of us, because as you said, Andy, the work that they're doing, I mean, a lot of those churches have control rooms that rival a network control room. I mean, they're very impressive. So we benefit from learning what they do and vice versa.
Absolutely. And there's so many production companies, especially like in New York and LA, but really all over the country, that do all the same things we do. Um, but because we have broadcast in our name, they don't think they belong. So we have to find a way to get around that and attract members from those kinds of companies. Because that's a much bigger group to pull from than just people who work in television stations.
Well, yeah, I mean that along those lines, you've got folks that work in arenas, that work in baseball stadiums, things like that. I mean, the video screens have the same kind of tech. I mean, the minor league ballpark that's here in town has a control room that's not unlike what you see at a lot of TV stations. So, as the digital era has progressed, we've seen a lot of that technology not be exclusive to television stations anymore, even radio stations. And you've got podcasters and YouTubers and things like that that install this kind of gear into their homes and into their businesses. So obviously, there's a lot of people that are doing a lot of the work. They just may not necessarily be on the broadcast side of things.
Right, and that's the problem because we all lived through when we tried to change the name years ago, and that went very badly. So we don't want to do that again, but we do want to somehow position ourselves so that people know you don't have to be an over-the-air broadcaster to be doing all the same things that the rest of us do for a living, and they could belong to our group, and we could help them in their jobs. So we have to find a way that we can attract those kinds of people.
So one of the big values for them, and we hear this from our membership a lot, is obviously certification and education. And we are making, well, a lot of that accessible to people to, you can get certified even if you're not a member, although it definitely is a good idea to become a member to do so. But how many people are that you were talking to were either certified or looking to get certified for, basically to show off to their employer or things like that? Did you hear that people were interested in getting certified that weren't already, and what were their reasons for doing so?
I think, except for the really young people that we spoke to, most of them were certified, but they were still looking for new certifications and new classes to take. The same, but people brought up things like Dante and NDI. I was looking at it more in the general sense of video over IP, audio over IP, since there's so many formats in each of those things. That's definitely something we should look at doing because that's not just the future, that's already here. People are building those facilities and operating them now. So that was one that just kept coming up over and over, was the over IP kinds of signals.
And
The
as
other
far
thing
as
we talked about was Ennis workshops and trying to bring them into other places in the country. And I know we're going to do one at Hofstra, I think next month, I don't know, sometime soon. That
Yeah, that was something we had brought up, I think, at our last board of directors meeting, that there's been a lot of interest in kind of moving these Ennis workshops out and making them more accessible to folks. Have we made any kind of progress as far as getting those out? Because, and Jim, you may be able to answer this, as far as starting an Ennis workshop, it's, basically it just starts with an email or a phone call, and you very well could have one if you want one.
Yeah, I think we've almost exceeded our capacity to do NS workshops, in just the number of different chapters that have brought up this year that they would like to host one. And like Andy pointed out, the Hofstra University group is going to host one. Our Los Angeles chapter is talking about doing one early next year, and El Paso we just held, which was a smaller group. Those are areas where we haven't had one in a while, and I think we realize that we have to continue to strengthen our engineers who are working wherever they're at, and so we are looking at places where we haven't had an Ennis workshop in a while, and then not over scheduling our resources, because we do have a small number of speakers who tend to be the presenters at these workshops. And so we're trying to grow that presentation panel so that we can have the capacity to hold more of the Ennis workshops.
So it's more just finding the people that can actually do these events as opposed to organizationally actually kind of administrating them. Is that what you're saying?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. We've got to have the folks available who can do the speaking at the workshops. And so we're trying to expand that resources right now.
I'll go ahead and note that on the calendar, Jim said June 9th, we held one in El Paso. There are 3 officially slated in August 21 in Nashville, September 16 in Jekyll, Georgia, and then October 23rd in Kansas City. So those are confirmed and in the works, and others might get added as well. So if any of those are near you, keep your eyes out, and you could attend an NS workshop in your area.
Awesome.
Yeah, and
James,
I
what?
would, I would encourage anyone who has an interest in hosting a workshop, but don't feel like they have large enough numbers to do so, to go ahead and reach out to us, because we're all about promoting them. We just need a contact point, and then we need to get our speakers lined up so that they can have good content at their event.
So when it comes to the education part of things, I know that's sometimes something that chapters can struggle with as far as getting programming for their local meetings. And they don't have to do that alone. They don't have to try and dig it up. You and the national office are able to help with connecting folks with presenters, whether they're in person or virtually, that may want to present to the actual SBE local chapters, right?
Yeah, Debbie Hennessy here in our office has been a really valuable resource. That if local chapters are looking for a presenter and haven't been able to get a response from anyone, or just don't know where to go to find someone, she can go through all of her sustaining members and identify people who are interested in presenting and connect them with the local chapter.
How many, for you, Jim and Chris and Andy, how many of you heard from chapters that are doing more of a hybrid model these days? Obviously, COVID kind of changed the game when it came to how chapters met, because for a long time they couldn't. And now that they're getting back in, are you finding a lot of chapters are either not getting back together or not meeting, or are they doing more virtually, or a mixture of both? What are you finding?
I'll take that for New York. New York is going to do every meeting going forward as hybrid for the foreseeable future. And it has been very, very successful. They get a number of people to show up in person and an even bigger number coming in virtually from all over the world, actually, certainly all over the country. And it's been very successful. And we're just going to continue that in New York. We just had our barbecue actually last week, and that sold out really fast, as a great turnout every year. So that one you can't do virtual, but the barbecue is very good in person. But all the regular meetings are going to be hybrid, and they have been for the last year. And Conrad, our vice president, has done an amazing job of scheduling the entire year. Um, and now we have so many vendors that want to do meetings that we're actually going to do extra meetings. So in September, I think we're already going to do two. So that's pretty amazing.
Yeah, and there's, as you said, there's people that are attending from all over the world. So it is open to not just people that are in the New York market or in the New York chapter. Basically, if you want to drop in on their meeting, they do welcome everybody, right?
Absolutely. And anywhere, anyone from anywhere is welcome to join.
So what I know one of the year after year, in every report I've ever done for the SBE, we've got a lot of members that join, and one of the biggest benefits I've seen is the Member Plus. So they get all of those webinars included in their membership. That's proven pretty popular over the years, that people are taking that Member Plus option and watching the webinars, right, Jim?
Yeah, actually, we track our attendance monthly on those, and we have almost, I would say, 99% of our participants in our online webinars are Member Plus level members, and so it's been an extremely popular option for those who are trying to pursue additional education to help them in their career.
And how are those webinars actually determined? Like, how do you plan the programming for each one of those webinars that are created?
We have a really active education committee, and they meet monthly, and they will brainstorm new topics for upcoming webinars. And then they'll identify subject matter experts that can speak to those topics. And then they'll reach out, contact them, find out if they're available to present. And it's just been a wonderful option to be able to do these recordings, and then people will, we'll have more watchers after the presentation than we have during the presentation. And that's no knock on the live presentation, but there are just a lot of people who go into our library and see what's available, what's been added to the library recently, and they're watching them. So it's a very active group.
Yeah, so and you're putting on like a couple of webinars a month at this point. I mean, there's a lot of them that are being created.
Yeah, at least I think we had 1 month we had only one, but the majority of the time we have two, sometimes three, depending on the availability of a presenter.
And the neat thing too is as a member plus, you get to go back and watch any of the webinars that have been created over time. So if there's one specifically that you want, you can access that at any time, right?
Yeah, and for example, we do these safety webinars every year. We do a refresh of those RF safety webinars, and people will sometimes they really like the one we did 2 years ago, and so they'll go back and watch that one again. But we're always putting out fresh content on that subject, and people will watch those all through the year just to get up to speed on what they need to focus on.
So we've got the kind of the current status of things as to we obviously, again, as we mentioned, we've got a great member base. We've got we're financially pretty solvent. We've got a lot of ideas. I know I've got ideas for the future, and every one of the members that are watching probably has opinions to how the industry should change and how you can attract people. But what I'm curious about for Jim, you and as well as Andy, what's getting legs right now with the feedback that you've gotten so far and through the meetings that we've had? What's gotten legs so far that the SBE is kind of driving towards in the future?
See, we talked about doing something at NAB New York. So we just this last week with the education committee agreed to try to do, I guess it's Radio 101, similar to what we did at NAB in Las Vegas, to do that sort of thing at NAB New York. So we're going to reach out and try to make that happen. Breaking news, I guess. And try to do more things like NS or Radio 101 or different seminars all over the country. As people would like us to put them together, you'd reach out and let us know what you're interested in, and we'll try to do something in your area. Jim, what else we had?
Well, I'll make a pitch for the leadership development course. We were talking about that right before we kicked off the session. And that's been an annual event that we've held for folks who are trying to make the transition from strictly broadcast engineering to executive level, or they're responsible for a team or a group, and they haven't had the training. Maybe they didn't really get a lot of management training when they were early on in their career. So we've been doing this leadership development course every year, and it's just an excellent opportunity for people who are making that transition to develop their soft skills, learn how to speak to executives, how to speak to the owner, the general manager, how to convey and build a team, develop the structure within the team. There's just a lot offered there, and I think in 3 days, in some ways, it's so much content that it's a bit overwhelming, but it's been such a good development tool. And I've heard from attendees last year who said, I just wish I could have more of my team present, or I wish my boss was here. They love the content that's being presented. And that's been
I was going to say, I can tell you, as somebody who has worked with a lot of engineers, and this is certainly no disrespect to anybody, but one of the common themes is a lot of times we are business people as well as technical people, and the fact that we have to sell a lot of why we do what we do and the way that we do it to the managers to the owners and things like that. So we can provide justification that we're not just a cost center, we are actually a means of doing business. And we have to frame it like that. And that's where these kinds of courses can help, is to help you basically lead other leaders and become a stronger person to sell your ideas, right?
Yeah, that's exactly it. And it's just not often a part of the training of an engineer as they're developing their career. They don't learn those soft skills, and so we've got to find that, we've got to fill that gap.
Sure. So any other Andy, you kind of spilled the beans on breaking news, but anything else that's currently in the pike? I got to tell you, I that RF 101 session I know was hugely popular at NAB, and I was one of the presenters of it, and it was to me it seemed, as somebody who manages engineers, that if you've got somebody who's new to the industry, it was perfect to send somebody to get a crash course on how things are and what to expect and things like that. So, yeah, that was wonderful that we were able to put that on. So, if you're able to bring those out to more entities, I know there was some demand on that. That would be awesome to have.
Yeah, it was something that we really wanted to do and get that particular seminar out to more people. We had a really good response at NAB, people asking if we would travel it. So hopefully this will be our first opportunity, and then we'll see what we can do in the future. I think we're also looking for ideas for what to do at NAB coming up next year. So if people have ideas, they could send them in.
Well, terrific. And of course, any other feedback, there's emails on the SBE website that can certainly lead you in the right direction. And our email boxes are always open to suggestions and anybody who's got opinions to share, no doubt. So any other final thoughts? Otherwise, we can wrap things up here, but things that we can look forward to, or any other final thoughts that you have to share, Andy or Jim?
Well, we've got the executive committee meeting coming up this weekend, so looking forward to seeing everybody there, and then getting ready for Columbus in the fall for my final board meeting as president, which is kind of hard to believe. It's certainly been an
2
honor
years
to
goes by fast, doesn't it?
so fast. And I felt like I lost the first 6 months because of COVID, so would love to have that back. But hopefully we got a lot done in the time I had, and look forward to finishing up at the end of September.
Yeah, the funny thing is, in about 6 days, we could have actually had this whole session in person. We could have just set a camera down and the four of us could have done this all in person. But we'll look forward to seeing you all coming up on Saturday. So Andy, Jim, thanks to you both for being here today.
Now, thanks for doing
for
this.
the
It was great.
All right, Chris, we'll turn things over to you to close things out for us.
All righty. Well, thanks, Kevin and Andy and Jim. This has been the SBE WEBxtra, the SBE chapter of the web. We present this monthly. We hope you'll join us each time. We'll post the replay on our YouTube channel, usually within a day. If you hold SBE certification, viewing the SBE WEBxtra qualifies you for 1/2 point in Category G. That's attendance. It's just like attending a local chapter meeting. If you have an idea for a topic or a guest for the SBE WEBxtra, send it to webextra@sbe.org. And that does it for this installment of the SBE WEBxtra from the Society of Broadcast Engineers, the Association for Broadcast and Multimedia Technology Professionals. Thanks again to our guests, SBE President Andrea Cummis and SBE Executive Director Jim Ragsdale. And on behalf of Kevin Trueblood, we'll see you next month.